Norris. It's awesome. So, all right, guys. God Country number 3. A brisk, cool Texas evening. Emmett Quinlan sits in the grass with Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in the Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in the Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in the Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in the Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he watches Dina, his granddaughter, play with a wooden sword in the yard. Roy watches from a window in Valifax, the magical sword, across his lap while he
he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword across his last time while he watches his granddaughter hold the ribbon sword. He literally watches from a window a valor grasp a magical sword.
Says to himself, but not being quiet. Unbelievable. As he pulls out a camel and lights up. Trying to calm himself down, he says to himself, fucking magic sword brings you back, and you're further than you've ever been. Roy inhales deeply, letting the thick smoke fill his lungs and the nicotine seep into his blood, willing himself to let it go, but he can hear his dad regardless of how bad he doesn't want to. Roy! Emmett looks down the porch that not too long ago was hundreds of pieces strewn about the yard, trying to gather his thoughts and courage to talk to the younger man. I heard what you said, son, and you gotta get all that foolishness out of your head. You didn't bring that demon here. Roy blows out smoke and gestures with his hands, visibly irritated. Your sword tell you that? Emmett, with his hand still resting on the butt of the living weapon, regret and sadness in his eyes, declares, "No, Valifax didn't tell me. When I found out I was sick, when your mother and I found out," he leans back, exhausted, and missing his wife, "I just couldn't stand the idea of not being able to take care of her, of you, not being able to do the things a man is supposed to do. I knew what was coming, or what I thought I did, and I wasn't going to let it happen. I wasn't going to wait around to become some kind of burden." Emmett wipes a tear from his eyes. He hasn't felt like this in a long time. "That thing, what came here, demon-looking thing, it wasn't answering your prayer, son. I don't know why it came, or why Valifax chased it, but it wasn't coming to take me." He can't even look at his son. Prayers like that don't get answered. Roy turns back towards the old man, wanting this to just be all over with. "Dad, And over his left shoulder in the dark, a shape is moving towards him, and he is completely unaware. A being pounces on Roy and starts biting him on his neck and shoulder, and Roy screams, dropping Valifax without a second thought, jumping off the porch and running towards his son. "Roy!" Shaking loose the horrible thing, Roy shouts, "Ah, man, what the fuck?" And he turns around and punches this monster with everything he has. Just as Emmett reaches Roy, he gets his arms under him as he collapses and says to him, I got you. You're okay." Delirious, Roy mumbles, What the fuck?" "I don't know," his dad says. Valifax begins to glow and speaks. "Baelgrim, god of death, brother of Aristus, and youngest son of Atum. His is the coward's way. He would send his legions while he watches from the shadows, no matter." Then Valifax is bright as a sun, glowing with power. Emmett lifts it over his head and hears, "Nothing will hide from me." Kind of in shock from what's happening, Emmett says, "All right, then what does that mean?" And Emmett turns in the direction that the otherworldly object clearly wants him to look, and the sword shines bright. It lights the land in front of them like the headlights of 1,000 pickup trucks, and Emmett mutters, "Oh my God." And Valifax answers, "It means it is time." Out in front of the two men, as far as they can see, are thousands and thousands of what appear to be the undead. Roy is scooting on the ground, trying to gather himself and get up off the dirt. Emmett stands in front of him and tells him, "Go get Janie and Dee. Lock every door and window, and don't come out no matter what." "Dad, no, we can..." "Now!" demands Emmett, scared out of his mind but not going to debate this. Roy scrambles up and begins to run toward the house to protect his family. Hesitant, not knowing what is fixing to happen, the old man holds on to Valifax and looks out over the sea of evil undead and says to himself, "All right, okay." And then Valifax comes to life again. "Be not afraid. We shall end this together," it instructs Emmett. Then he takes a deep breath and he grips the hilt of the mighty weapon with both of his hands, standing in a way that shows he is ready for war. "Breathe, Emmett Quinlan, and never let go." Roy bursts through the front door and into the kitchen where his wife and daughter are. "Roy? What is it? What's going on?" Janie asks, startled. "Get away from the window!" Roy yells back. Out in the field, Emmett emits a deep, ferocious yell, a primal scream, and swings Valifax in all its luminous glory with all of his strength, slicing through what he thinks is flesh and bone, protecting his family but letting Valifax lead the way. There are too many for Emmett to stop them from passing him, and he just looks. He looks back. A group of these monsters break the window trying to get to the others. Oh my God. Janie shouts as the glass shatters, sprays her little girl. Dina screams in utter fear, wanting to... Emmett asks, "Valifax, did you..." With total confidence, the weapon cuts him off. "Focus on your task. I will deal with this." Inside the house, Roy is trying to keep all windows and doors closed and locked. Janie nurses their daughter and tries to remain calm while trying to soothe the young girl. She looks over and notices the butcher's block of knives starting to glow and shake a little bit. Outside, Emmett continues to scream and swing the blade, hacking through bodies with ease, but seeing no end to the amount of them coming to him. Holding a window shut from inside the house, Roy tells his wife, "Janie, take D and run. Run!" Emmett continues to wield Valifax and chop through the undead as if he were cutting firewood for a long, cold winter. There are so many of them. Across the property, everything with a blade begins to come alive. From inside the kitchen, all the knives and cutlery throw itself into the windows and doors, locking the family inside and protecting them from the death trying to get inside. In the barn across the yard from the house, all the shovels and shears and axes, anything with a sharpened edge or pointed end, comes to life and propels towards the things trying to get inside the Quinlan family with a loud boom bursting through the big wooden doors, flying through the air at incredible speed toward the mob of undead.